In a world full of routine, two degenerates emerge to remind us to embrace life. Krista and Jason aren't the cruisers we need or deserve, but they're here anyway. They're just soulmates with a GoPro, a moderate tolerance for alcohol, and a thirst for fun. Let's celebrate the day.
What's the situation, Degenerate Nation?
What's happening, Degenerates?
Hey, we're at a rest area just...
Whoa. We got someone hanging over our shoulders.
We have a stalker.
We have a stalker.
It's the shenanigator. Now, we're at a rest area just south of the Skyway Bridge. Sandy's from the local area, so we invited her to join us for this bit of our vlog.
Yes.
And we're not native Floridians. We moved here a few years back.
Ago.
Yeah, and we're Oregonians. So we move here, we get hooked on the Florida lifestyle, we get hooked on cruising. Our anniversary cruise is on the Miracle, and one of the cool things about sailing out of Tampa, which was that port, was going under the Skyway for us. And I had no clue how far the Skyway was from the port. I mean, like, we boarded the ship and we went up to the very highest spot we could find, and
we sat there for 2 hours.
We sat there waiting for it to go into the Skyway because the ship misses the Skyway by like 15 feet, right? Anyway, so you know, we all go under there. I'm already 3-4 drinks, 5 drinks in, and we're hooping and hollering, and it's really fun. I mean, I thought the Skyway Bridge is really pretty. I've seen pictures of it all lit up at night, and it's just phenomenal. Unfortunately, it has a really tragic past.
It's not a good. It's a sad bridge.
And unbeknownst to me, this is like the 40th anniversary of the this tragedy that happened at the bridge. And then the more I start reading, it's like 300 people, or almost 300 people have died in the area of the bridge. The original, this is the second bridge that we sail under at this point. The original bridge was built in 1954. One of those metal erector set looking bridges, two bridges each direction.
Kind of looks like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
The original one did.
Well, at any rate, you think so?
Yeah.
The original?
It looks like the original one.
Oh,
the erector set thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it did look erector set-y to me.
It did.
So then, here comes, let's fast forward in time to January 28th, 1980. Coast Guard ship, cutter Blackthorn is the name of the ship. Freshly revamped in the Port of Tampa on its maiden voyage after the retrofit out to sea. The captain leaves the
bridge.
The bridge, thank you. We're talking about bridges and I can't remember the word. The captain leaves the bridge and leaves a junior officer in charge while he goes to check on like a propulsion shaft or something like that. And so the next thing you know, there's another ship coming their way, the Capricorn. It's a tanker or a cargo ship, and they ended up colliding.
Running into each other
just outside outside where the bridge would be now. Now the accident's not the worst of it. I mean, obviously that's pretty tragic. Except the Capricorn's anchor gets hung up in the Blackthorn. So when they go to pull away from each other after the accident, it capsizes the Blackthorn. And 23 people die. 23 sailors on that ship die. Now the Blackthorn eventually, once they did their thing with it, they realized that it was beyond repair, and they towed it about 50 miles offshore and made an artificial reef out of it. So it's still in the area, underwater, and it's home to a bunch of fishes at this point.
And we're actually at
Blackthorn Memorial Park is this rest area. This is the, like I said, the north side, the St. Pete side of the Skyway Bridge.
Sandy side. My side.
The cool side. Now, fast forward to 1980. A phosphorus freighter named the MV Summit Venture is sitting offshore of Tampa, waiting for its turn to come in. A young harbor pilot named John E. Lero wasn't at the helm initially. And you know harbor pilots, they're the little boat that comes alongside the cruise ship and the dude jumps off, that's a harbor pilot. He's supposed to be an expert in the waters of the local this area. So him and an apprentice go out. While it's 50 miles offshore, somebody got the bright idea to pump out a bunch of ballast, and it raises up the ship an additional 15 feet. The reason they sat offshore for like 3 hours waiting for their chance to come in due to weather. So So finally,
75-mile-an-hour gust.
well, they decide to take the trip in, and just as they start to get into the Port of Tampa, like almost pretty much a point of no return, things get a little dicey. The apprentice gives up command to John Lero at some point outside the, and then the crap hits the fan. It's like hurricane type gale, 75 or 70 mile an hour winds. The radar of the day was whited out because it just couldn't see anything. They had people sitting on the bow of the ship and they couldn't see the people. It was so bad. And now the ship is 15 feet higher out of the water. It's basically a big sail. They can't tell exactly where they're going. Lero, by the time he realizes that there's a lot of trouble at hand, and there's some debate about whether or not what happened, but he was found later not guilty of anything that did happen, as far as being culpable for the incident. So anyway, big gusts, everything's a problem. The radar's whited out. Nobody can see. The ship crashes right into the bridge. Now, to make matters worse, the bridge is unprotected. You can basically drive a ship right into the foundation, the pillars of the bridge. So it crashes into the bridge. It knocks down 1,200 feet of the bridge.
Cars.
Now, to make matters worse, once again, this is like a perfect storm. There's just this tragedy after tragedy of these circumstances that just keep making it worse. One survivor in the whole incident was one of the first people that went off the bridge. A fellow named McIntyre drives off the bridge onto the ship, and then off the ship into the harbor waters, and had enough wherewithal in the midst of all that to roll his window down before he actually hit the water, and he got out and swam away. Now, here comes a Greyhound bus. Like I said, it just keeps getting worse. This is more tragic the more we talk about it. Greyhound bus goes off. 6 other cars go off. In total, 35 people were killed in that incident from cars going off of the bridge. John McIntyre, he died in 1989, and he said he always felt guilty for being the survivor of that incident. Now, the Mayday calls are just hair-raising, and I'll pause a moment and we can listen to some of the Mayday call. It's about a 4-minute video.
I got chills just remembering.
Yeah, or a 4-minute audio clip if you want to listen to it, and it's just hair-raising. I mean, it's just awful to listen to. It's John Lero's voice.
Mayday, 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 Coast Guard. Mayday, 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 Coast Guard.
Vessel calling Mayday, vessel in distress. This is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. Request your position, nature of distress, and number of persons on board. Over.
This is it. All the emergency equipment out to the Skyway Bridge. The vessel just hit the Skyway Bridge. The Skyway Bridge is down. Get all emergency equipment out to the Skyway Bridge. The Skyway Bridge is down. There's a Mayday, emergency situation. Stop the traffic on that Skyway Bridge. The large vessels, stop the traffic on the Skyway Bridge. There's some people in the water. Get emergency equipment out to the Skyway Bridge now.
This is Coast Guard, St. Petersburg. Roger. What vessel are you on, over?
Some adventure, some adventure.
Some adventure, Coast Guard, St. Petersburg. Roger. What is the size of your vessel, and can you assist, over?
Cannot assist. We're 606 feet long, light draft. We cannot assist. We are in on abutment. Stop all the traffic on the bridge. Send some vessels out here to render assistance. People are water.
This is Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, roger. Team, break, pond, pond. Hello, all stations. This is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. Silence is imposed on this frequency. Say launch Mayday. Say launch Mayday. Silence is imposed on this frequency. This is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. Out.
Mr. Partners, Coast Guard, St. Petersburg. I'm dropping anchor bars and we'll be headed for the bridge to assist. The Dixie Project, OS 5241.
This is Coast Guard, St. Petersburg. Roger, may I have the name of your vessel again, please, over.
The Tug Dixie Project, the Tug Dixie Project.
Dixie Progress, Coast Guard, St. Petersburg. Roger, please advise me when you're on scene and the number of people you pick up out of the water. There is a report that there are people in the water. To all stations, this is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. The vessel, Some Adventure, 606 foot, has hit the Skyway Bridge. Any vessels in Tampa Bay area, Skyway vicinity, proceed and assist. There are reports of people in the water. Break. This is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. Out. Vessel that hit the Skyway, the vessel Some Adventure. This is Coast Guard St. Petersburg, Channel 16, over.
Some Adventure, Bart.
Some Adventure, Coast Guard St. Petersburg. Roger, what is your cargo, over?
Your light, inbound.
This is Coast Guard St. Petersburg. Roger, where did the people come from that are in the water, over?
On the bridge.
This is Coast Guard St. Petersburg. Roger, request you stand by 16. Do not shift to any other frequency.
Stand by.
Some Adventure, Coast Guard St. Petersburg. Did either span of the Skyway go down into the water, over?
Sir, the west span went down, the west span.
Roger, the whole west span, over?
The west span is down in the water.
There's the Mayday call, and it's just it's chilling.
Yeah.
It's sobering. It's awful.
I got chills when we were listening to it the first time, and I got chills him mentioning it.
So John Lero, naturally, everybody wants to blame somebody. I mean, a ship just crashed into the Skyway Bridge, and the Skyway Bridge collapsed, and 35 people died. And the images are horrific of cars parked on the side of at the cusp of falling off the bridge. The Greyhound bus, the top is sheared off. I mean, it's horrific. There were bodies floating. There's a really cool documentary on this that we had watched or rented on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go through or watch it later or rent it. It is a pretty good video. Yeah. Way better than we could do as far as the facts. I'm just trying to bring awareness to the fact that the Skyway was like this celebratory thing. Then I find out it's actually quite sobering.
Yes.
So Lero, they want to hang him out to dry. The public's calling for his head on a stick at this point, and he has to go through and prove his innocence, basically, that there was not really anything that he could have done based on the circumstances of this freak storm that just popped up and pushed the ship off course. It couldn't see where it was going. He didn't have any radar.
And it was also one of the first cases in U.S. history where the fault was considered an act of God. That became a common phrase for disasters after the fact, where they were weather related, but that was one of the first that was considered an act of God.
Now, so he finally he enlists the help of an attorney who was actually enlisted for the state to prosecute him, but read his case and apparently had enough knowledge of seamanship and such to where he wanted to actually go to the other side, because he knew this guy would be hung out to dry if somebody didn't help him. So he comes to his rescue. They go through a fairly drawn out process, and his innocence is proven, and he gets to go back to being a harbor pilot. Except, I told you this keeps getting more tragic, he gets diagnosed with MS. So he only gets to be a harbor pilot for a very short period of time. After that, it gets really hard for him to get around. And then we get into kind of the hopeful part. John Lero took a job at the suicide hotline. And he, who knows how many people that he talked off of the bridge, the ledge.
Literally the bridge.
You know, and he got to help a lot of people. He died in 2002.
I'm sure that was a lot of people he talked off the bridge.
Yeah.
Now the ship itself, the MV Some Adventure, it gets repaired, it gets sold to this outfit, it gets sold to that outfit. Finally, it sinks off the coast of Vietnam, and no loss of life. So apparently, whatever happened, it was some weather-related thing, but it sunk off the coast of Vietnam, and that's where it is today. Now, they decided. The government had to figure out what to do. I mean, obviously, before the original span, there was just a ferry that would go back and forth between Bradenton and St. Pete.
Right.
And so they couldn't go back to ferrying. They had to do something about building another bridge. So then it all came up, and the Skyway that we all now know came to be. The new Skyway is rumored to be haunted. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Now, the only story I'm aware of that I saw repeated on the internet is a story of a female hitchhiker with blonde hair that will get in your car on one side and then disappear on the other. Which I don't find hard to believe, because the old bridge 51 people jumped from, and the new bridge so far over 200 have jumped from. On the span, and we'll show you some video as we go across the bridge later, there are 6 suicide hotline phones to try and help people. And the state actually this spring,
Well,
Yeah.
summer and fall.
Anyway, they decided in early 2020 that maybe we should put nets under the bridge, and that's supposed to be completed by summer of 2020. So we'll see if that happens to further save lives. I don't really have any other information on Haunted, but we have a local.
He knows more about my local history than I do.
What stories have you heard of the hauntedness of the Skyway Bridge?
I've heard of the blonde woman, but really that's the only one that I know of. But I think that when you take a St. Pete ghost tour, they talk about some of the hauntings on the Skyway. So another reason to come to St. Pete.
St. Pete's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah,
and
we love
this
it.
rest area is really cool. I mean, obviously there's a ton of people here. There's picnic tables, dogs, and your dogs are supposed to be on leashes. And
He's on leash.
He's on leash, yeah. But it is really beautiful here, and we are right next to the water.
It's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah. So we'll show you around the rest area a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the Skyway stuff and see if we can get a good shot or two of the Skyway.
We're gonna be driving too.
So yeah, who knew the Skyway had that much tragedy behind it and that much history and stuff that I personally didn't know. So
It's so beautiful.
I wanted to do this to make sure that all of the rest of us cruisers knew that, and that maybe the next time we're sailing on the Skyway, cheers one to everybody that didn't quite make it under it.
That's correct.
Yeah, including
I
John
agree.
Lero, who spent more than a fair portion of his life probably trying to shake the stigma of what happened.
Yeah. And
Now, the new Skyway has these humongous dolphins, they call them, the big foundations that protect the pillar that comes out and supports the bridge. If the old bridge had that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
If radar was better, that wouldn't have happened. If they had chose to wait maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes, that wouldn't have. I mean, there's just so many things that would have never happened, and all these things had to line up. A Greyhound bus just has to be in the right spot at the right time to run the death toll to its maximum. I mean, it's tragic.
Yeah, and the car that, if you look at any photos, you'll see a car like teetering right at the edge of the bridge. He pulled over so the Greyhound bus could pass him. And then
Saved his life.
he's alive,
Yeah,
and
see,
the bus didn't.
Just like all tragedies, it seems like there's a sequence of events, a chain of
Yeah.
errors, a chain of events that has to happen. So it's no different here.
No,
So let's go
So-
check out some Skyway.
it is a beautiful bridge, and I think it's a fitting memory. It's a memorial for everyone. It's a bridge to happiness, it's a bridge to joy, and it's also a bridge of healing.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It is the longest cable span concrete bridge in the world.
Oh,
So not only that, but the old bridge became a fishing pier. So they didn't knock the entire bridge down. There was like a concrete part from Bradenton and a concrete part from St. Pete and all of that suspension stuff in between. So they made that all into a fishing pier. It's the longest fishing pier in the world. So
Yeah.
here's to the world's right here.
yeah. And when you're on a cruise ship sailing out of Tampa,
Yeah, you can still see
it all.
the two other ends of the old bridge where it was.
Yeah.
And I guess we never looked, never put it together or
I
whatever.
saw it, I just
and
didn't
then,
think of
you know, I see these news stories that were coming up on the anniversary of this tragic event happening. I'm like, what? I went under there and I was like, yeah! And you can hear the echo of yourself because it's so close and all that. And
Yeah, I was
didn't
all
know.
excited about the bridge, and then we watched the documentary, and it.
I was still excited about it.
It's
It
still
just-
exciting.
it has a little
It's a little more,
plus.
yeah.
It
A little
drove
more
it home.
somber.
It's a little sobering to
Yeah.
realize the tragedy that did happen, but it is a beautiful spot.
Yep.
In fact, they just redid both of these rest areas in the last 2 years, I think in anticipation of the anniversary coming up. So yeah, it's
Yep, and
gorgeous.
beautiful memorial. I'll throw up some of the pictures of the memorial and stuff right here.
I got a camera.
You know, you never know when you're on the side of the road and you pull off somewhere what the history is. And so slow down, smell the roses, and take a look at the memorials.
Hey, isn't that kind of like celebrating the day?
Celebrate the day, right? All right, we'll be back from the other side. All right, so as you pull into the rest area, there's the building right there. And then over here, you see the memorial. And it's got it's got the date on it. And a beautiful plaque. And then as you look out the harbor, you can see the Skyway up there.
fun fact, the pier is right there. We're gonna go ahead and hop in a car and see what kind of trouble we can get into. Maybe we can get a better vantage point of the bridge. I don't know. We're gonna go see.
There's off to the left is the Skyway, and then this pier that goes out, the fishing pier, that's where the old bridge used to be.
So we are driving on the north fishing pier, which is part of the original Skyway Bridge before it was damaged by the Summit Venture. And I'm just going to do a little footage and we can watch that happen.
Oh, hey, fun fact that I forgot to mention. Do you know how many feet of the Skyway collapsed due to the collision from the ship? Was 1,200. The main span of the Skyway Bridge that the ships go under, 1,200. Huh?
Creepy.
Eerie? Coincidence?
So it's the longest fishing pier in the world.
All right, we are out at the end of the old bridge on the fishing pier, which you have seen us drive in on. It's beautiful, but a really good view of the Skyway from here. And if you look way off in the distance, you can see the other side. Pretty cool, huh?
Really cool, really eerie.
There's the old bridge.
The old bridge that we just drove on. And the new bridge. Another thing to note as we go up, you'll see boxes for people who are desolate and distraught and wanting to end their life, and they are suicide hotlines where they can call. There's 6 of them.
The crisis hotline. Right where you might need it.
Right?
Said over 200 people have jumped to their deaths off of these 2 bridges, or off this bridge, and 50 some on the other one.
It's just devastating.
Right? It's a pretty bridge.
It's beautiful.
21 individual cables on each side of the main structure support the bridge on this wayward. Hard to believe that it's so tall that you could fit a cruise ship under it. Not by much. We missed it by 15 feet.
Right?
Here's the other side of the old Skyway.
And this is the Bradenton side.
Close this thing out.
Okay.
So, a cool little bit of factoid, draped in tragedy, obviously. Sad story, but the next time I cruise under the Skyway, which we love Tampa, it's easy to get to, it's easy to get out of, and
cheap,
the feature of going underneath the Skyway, which is really cool. A lot of great ships and ports go out of here. So, yeah, we'll give a cheers to now what we know about the Skyway Bridge. Very cool.
Have a great day, guys.
Celebrate the day.
Celebrate the day.
Much love to our friends. Be the good in the world. Spread the love and go out on an adventure. Please like, comment, and subscribe.